now. And so if anyone wants to say anything, please just speak, because otherwise I'm not gonna see it. I'm kind of speaking blind into a computer right now, which is kind of weird. Okay, so yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Some of you might not know me. My name's Sarah Barber. I'm co-operating agent of IEA Task 43 together with Jason Fields, who I wasn't here before. He is one of the 7 o'clock people. He might come later. And the idea today is to do this launch of this so-called new working group 1. And the time plan is to speak, that I and some other people who've been involved before will be speaking a little bit for about 20 minutes. This has changed for those of you who looked at my agenda. It's actually changed a little bit. But the main part is going to be for you to speak. So to split into small groups and actually ask you, what do you think about a plan? Where do you think you can actually contribute? And then actually take a decent amount of time to listen to your results as well. I'll explain how that works when we get there. And then after that, defining the next steps. You might see that the overall agenda is shortened a bit. I actually have to leave this office at 4:20, so get on my train. So it would be good if we could manage to finish by then. I'll try not to talk too much. So is that a general plan? Does that sound good? Does anyone want to add anything to the list, think I've missed something, or want to say anything in general about the next couple of hours? Marcus says thumbs up. Yuri's here now. Okay, so maybe some of you don't know, maybe some of you don't know. IEA Wind Task 43 is just starting its second phase of the next 3 years, where we had to write a report about the previous phase, and we had to write a task extension proposal. And as part of doing that, the organising committee decided to restructure slightly and create a new vision, and that's what we've done. We released the website recently, so if some of you haven't seen that, I can quickly put that as well in the chat for you to have a look at maybe while we're talking. It's not fully complete, perfect website yet, but it's got all the necessary information on. And so we, as the organising committee, we have established our vision is to unlock the full value of wind energy through digital transformation. And our mission is to act as a digital transformation catalyst by driving open collaboration with and beyond the wind community to deliver insights, recommendations, standards, and tools in these 3 key areas of data, culture, and competition. And for those of you who have been around for a bit and involved in Task 43, you'll know that those 3 points, data, culture, and competition, correspond to the 3 grand challenges that were defined in a recent paper, where we tried to talk to lots of people and look to see what the challenges of digitalization are. And so we've split the work into these 3 areas because of that. So this is who we are. As I mentioned before, Jason Fields is the co-operating agent with me. He's from NREL in the US. I'm from the Eastern Switzerland University of Applied Sciences in Switzerland. And we also have 6 other people who are currently members of the organising committee here today. I think I've seen Des and Stephen. You is definitely going to come, or maybe he's come to one on Thursday. Anyway, so those are the organising committee. I think Stephen's going to say something later as well. And then we also have an industrial advisory board who kind of advise us and guide us, giving us inputs from the industry. You can see a list of the people who are currently on the board here. And then don't get scared of this picture. This picture is just supposed to be showing how these 3 working groups that I mentioned already on the left interact with the rest of the world. So the idea is that on the bottom right, we actually actively collect the needs, and we try to attract people, and we try to find out what existing projects are going on. And we bring all this information together, and we try to collect and prioritize these things we call use cases, which are tasks that people are carrying out that we can help through digitalization. And then we, on some of these use cases that we have defined as prioritization, we actually then go to do some so-called deep dive. So we look at a particular topic, for example, risk-based maintenance of rotor blades, degradation could be an example. And we actually try to go through the whole process and use some of the tools we've been developing to show how digitalization can help those processes. But everything we learn from these activities, we feed into these 3 groups on the left who are working independently, but we still want to have regular meetings to catch up with each other. And on the right, on the top, the arrows to the right are coming out of the working groups. We hope to have new knowledge, new recommendations, new tools, which then can be used in these use case deep dives. We can disseminate them to the rest of the world, basically, via different tools, videos, and papers. So that's kind of the idea of this whole cycle. And what we're going to talk about today is what Working Group 1 is going to be doing, and hopefully how you can all contribute to that. And I'm just going to briefly go over those different parts because I've got slides coming up to explain each one. So the first activity within Working Group 1 is called Metadata Learning, which was previously the Metadata Challenge. And this is about understanding. So it's researching into the area of metadata knowledge engineering, and it's trying to help us understand what we're doing. And then we have these other 4. So the bottom left is vocabulary and ontology development. We have schema development, we have digital twin tools, and we have data maturity roadmap development. I'm going to go through these 5 points now in more detail. So the Metadata Challenge, as I mentioned before, this already existed. It's just changed its name. And what we've done, we've already created a glossary, which is not 100% finished. It's on. It's available at that link. I can put a link in. You can find it on the website anyway. And it's connected to a Git book, so we can. The idea is to continuously update that. We have a webinar series which some of you may know about. We decided that it would be good to talk sort of publicly with different people who know more about things like metadata, knowledge engineering, related things, and actually record those and have a conversation and put the recordings online and actually make that available so people can further their understanding, and maybe we can improve collaboration in the area. So take a look at that as well if you want to find out more. And one of the best things we're doing is we're writing a review paper, which is led by Yuri, who's sitting next to me, about knowledge engineering for wind energy. And it hasn't been submitted yet, so we can't really give you a sneak peek preview on it, but it should be submitted in the next weeks. And quite a lot of people in the Metadata Challenge contributed to this. And it's about reviewing all these different words and all these different concepts and actually putting them into context of wind energy. Then we reviewed all the initiatives that we found where people had already applied these things, developed ontologies or data models for wind energy, and did an evaluation and comparison. And then we've developed some concrete strategies for improving. And so once that's done, we're obviously really excited to then use that as a basis for some of the further tasks. If you really want to know more about it, you can always contact Yuri. Otherwise, you have to wait a couple of weeks until pre-print is probably published. That's on the right-hand side. Obviously, you can't really see that, but that's just an example of all the different existing wind energy things that we looked at. For example, the IRP Wind project, IEA Task 32 ontology, Task 37 ontology, etc. And we already did a brainstorming in the metadata learning group about what we want to continue doing. So one thing is to possibly change the current webinar series into a general webinar series of Task 43, but actually keep the detailed metadata discussions to the metadata learning group, where we would invite people to come along and actually have these hour-long detailed conversations, which are probably necessary, but probably not that interesting to the general public. We thought about developing an ontology portal so that we can develop ontologies as a community. We thought about applying the SciData model, which Stuart Chalk has developed. I'm not sure if he's here right now. He's probably another example. Oh, you are here. Hi. So actually using that as a basis. He can probably tell you more about that if you happen to be in his group. Otherwise, he'll probably add it to the charts, as we discussed. Even developing a user guide. What's OWL again?
Web ontology.
Web ontology. See, I don't even know what it means. That's showing my ignorance. But we actually develop a user guide so people know what it means and how to use it. But also we learn more about methods for automatic ontology generation, or how to deal with bad logic in ontologies. So those are all the things that have been suggested that we're still trying to bring together, but we want to take your inputs first and see if there's anything else, anything that's missing, or anything that you want to prioritize on that list. In the vocabulary and ontology development group, we haven't done anything yet because this would be like an extension of the previous metadata challenge work, where we actually create something new based on our newfound knowledge. So we want to work out who's doing what. We've had many conversations with other groups, trying to actually collaborate rather than everybody working in parallel. We've been working with the Research Data Alliance as well, who work a lot on data sharing, because we had a grant with them, and we're planning a new working group with the Research Data Alliance, and I'd like all these things to align, which is why some of you who are here today, or at least maybe listening to the recording, we've already talked about that. So some of the ideas about what we could do would be to develop a higher level ontology to connect all the existing models in the different IEA Wind tasks, to convert the existing WRA data model, which Stephen will tell you about in a second, to an ontology, and to link it to Wind.io, which is a task 37 ontology. Then even task 50 has discussed a collaboration because they're developing a hybrid systems, so hybrid wind and solar and storage that we work together. And then there's the use case demonstration working group, which I'm also involved in with Des. And there is a need for possibly creating an ontology as part of that. So they're the current ideas that are going around on that area. Then for schema development, so I've put the wind resource assessment data model inside here. Stephen, I hope that was the right thing to do, but do you want to just give a 1 minute explanation of that?
Yes, I can. Yep. So I've been leading the wind resource assessment data model group for the last 3 years, and we've developed a schema, a set of instructions on what to capture and how to capture and structure the metadata that's required to explain how a METMAST or LiDAR or a SODAR or floating LiDAR is configured when it's installed on a site. So it's basically taken on the image on the right. You get a PDF document from an installation, and you kind of have to pull out the information manually. So instead of that, we've developed the schema where it can be digitally represented, and that's an example on the right of how a simple table in a PDF can be represented in JSON. So we're on version 1.2, and it's been adopted, I should say, by various different companies in the industry. So it's gaining traction and working well. I think I'll leave it there.
Great, thank you. And I think at the link you can find, or also on our website, you can find quite a lot of, we have some videos and the YouTube videos about, with the recordings of the working sessions and stuff. So I think you can find out a lot more about that, or just ask Stephen. But yeah, other ideas for this group would be that we want to gather sector expertise in a form that's usable for knowledge engineering and also for the automation of different workflows. And so to do that, we could further develop the WRA data model and align it with the results from task 1.2. We work with Wind.io. We've talked about that a bit already with the Wind.io people. We've got some people from TimWind, which is a group founded in Denmark for object naming that we want to align with and definitely working together with. There's also the PowerCurve schema as a data model, and then a process for standardization and working with IEC, because the PowerCurve schema is currently a topic which is just being discussed. So that all belongs in there. I think Tom can say more about that as well later, not now, run out of time. And then we also have the digital twin topic, which has come in. We haven't ever done, within Task 43, we haven't really talked about digital twins at all yet. But because we've had a few people tell us that they're interested in the topic, and because we are currently writing a few different proposals on the topic at my university, we want to, let's say, maybe set some ground or at least work together on some sort of basis for a digital twin framework. And the suggestion here would be to focus initially on O&M decisions, just because you can't do everything at the same time. And O&M is quite a good thing to start with, because there's lots of different data types coming in, lots of different possibilities for simplified modeling. And that we'd focus on this idea of knowledge graph based workflows, and then we'd use the ontologies that are being developed in the other tasks as a basis for that framework. We've had conversations with the Digital Twin Consortium, not sure if he's here right now, but he presented at the workshop in Boulder, in case anybody was there, in June. And we've been talking to him since then. So that would be kind of a new group, which hasn't done anything yet. And then on task 1.5, this is a bit different. We've had a lot of people doing a lot of work on this. I'm going to pass over to Tom to give you a 1-minute summary.
Thank you very much,
on
Sarah.
What they've been doing.
Thanks very much. Right, yeah, so data maturity roadmap is a task that's been pulled over from the previous Task 43 work, and the roadmap team have been working together to provide a sense of where the industry should be going around digitalization and data maturity. I think it's fair to say it's been a long time coming, and it's actually been very hard, but I think I speak for the roadmap team when I'm saying that actually it is now crystallizing in a way that we think is going to be quite powerful and constructive and just useful for these tasks going forward. That's coming to completion, so expect some announcements soon. I'll give you a quick preview of the key concepts. Sarah, can we have the next slide? So what we're doing is aligning the industry on what data practices, policies and technologies are going to be needed. But the overwhelming problem that we've faced is that literally everything in the whole of digitalization is related to, dependent on, and completely inextricable from literally everything else. And what we found across the tasks is that there's a lot of apparent duplication of effort. Notice I carefully say apparent, and lots of different directions, but similar concepts. So we've developed this framework of having swim lanes, which are the core areas of focus and expertise, enablers, which are these conditions that we need to put in place to succeed in our goal, and we've narrowed down one single goal. Next slide, please, Sarah. So I certainly don't have the time to go through all these, but we will do so in a follow-up presentation on the roadmap. But broadly speaking, we've been looking at how to link swim lanes and the enablers together. And what our objective is that any time you're doing any work within IEA Wind, you ought to be able to point to a swim lane and point to an enabler, or more than one swim lane, more than one enabler, but you should be able to use these to specify what you're working on and why. So, you know, I'm working on leadership, culture and education swim lane to create access to a developed workforce. that might be a task where you're figuring out how to train your staff in a particular area. So you ought to be able to point to an area and to a key enabler for the goal. Next slide, please, Sarah. I'm obviously not going to expose a slightly unfinished roadmap, but we're close to getting there and just iterating on the final timelines and outcomes. But broadly, what we have is 3 phases, which I hope I'm not misrepresenting, roadmap team, but this is my interpretation. First phase is kind of capture industry experience in a form that's usable for automation and for knowledge engineering, and implement low-hanging fruit, basic workflow automations, things like that, to support the scale out of the industry over the next 5 to 7 years. We want to get that in early, and you can see that work emerging with things like the WRA data model, the power curve schema, and so on, support it, writing down people's industry sector experience in a way that can then be used by knowledge engineers to build ontologies on top of, and so on. Next phase will be essentially a shift of gear to a much more powerful use of the like of ontologies to enable us to put together different dynamic workflows and more sophisticated approaches, both for knowledge engineering and for actually doing, you know, much broader and more technologically advanced data analyses. And then in the third phase is actually kind of the fruition of all that in terms of delivering much more complex APIs and digital assets, as well as ability to value and do sort of very sophisticated things like asset valuation, confidence assessment, things like this. So we are looking forward to seeing that flourish over the next 5 to 7 years. And that's me. Thanks, Sarah.
Great, thank you. And I think that brings together nicely some of the other tasks, and sort of I think as the roadmap progresses, we can then work out how the other tasks fit into that and where they fit in. So I think that works really well.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad that that's coming together. I know you've been working really hard on it. So great. I'm going to move on to the next part of the session, unless someone wants to specifically say or ask something. There's a conversation going on the chat, I can see. Are we answering that without me saying anything? Yeah, you're answering it. Okay. I'll ignore that then. So what I'm going to do now, I guess most of you are familiar with this idea of going into rooms on Teams. And this is time for you to actually do a little bit of thinking, maybe, or if you want. I'm going to get the chat for the Jamboard. Also, most of you who have had a session with me will know that I always use Jamboard. I know Tom's always a fan of Jamboard. So you should be able to open that, and you all need to open that before you go into the groups. And the idea of this Jamboard is that you fill it in as you go along. So the best thing to do is to have a person assigned as the writer. But if you want to add something and the group is going in a different direction to what your experience is, then just write something. So the idea is that, first of all, if you're not familiar with Jamboard, you can scroll to the different pages here at the top. And you should, so if you're in room 1, you're group 1. And the first thing you should do is just write down your names, like who was attending that group. And then I've split it up. It's like, you can imagine this like as a little table. So I'm asking, first of all, what ideas do you have for concrete tasks or contributions related to each of these tasks? I'm going to share with you the link to the presentation, because I know I'm perfectly aware of the fact that you just introduced a load of things and you might not have it in your head. So I'm just going to do that in a minute. I can't really do both things at the same time. Sorry, getting lost here. And then the second question is, which tasks are you interested in taking part in? So I actually want to know if you personally, or someone you know, or your company wants to actively be part of this, because we need to be able to work out how many groups we should be having. Do we need to have 5 different subgroups who come and report again every month to the big group, or do we only need one group? And like, we kind of need to get a feel of how many people are interested in each task. It's not And it's no obligation. If you write your name in here, nobody's going to come and say anything if you then decide that you can't. But it's like just for us to get an indication. And then question 3 is just anything else you might have discussed or thought about. And the idea is to structure that related to these tasks, right? And then I've put an example in. You can delete the examples. You can copy and paste these things. You can double click on them and change them. So you can move that around as much as you want. And so after, I'm probably going to do 25 minutes now because we've got a bit behind. I'll give you a warning and a couple of minutes warning, and then you'll be thrown back into the big group and then asked to quickly in 2 or 3 minutes present what you talked about. Does anybody have any questions about that? While I just take a couple of minutes to find the link for the presentations. Is everybody happy and motivated? So actually everybody who's at this meeting, if you signed up using the official form, you should actually have access with the email address that you signed up for this presentation. If you don't, you can always just look on the website, right? The website's got the 5 tasks on as well, or someone in your team will probably have access. Does anybody anything else? Anybody need anything else before I randomly divide you into groups?
Yeah, you said if you don't have access, you can get it on the website as well. Like maybe you can post the link to the website as well, because I don't have access to that.
Yeah, I think, didn't I do that at the beginning, or did I forget?
I don't know.
I put the link to the first thing I did in this meeting was put the link to the website in. So, but I don't know if you came in afterwards. Maybe you didn't get it.
This is a set of slides you linked to, isn't it?
No,
different than
sorry,
the website?
you don't. No, you're not going to get the link to the slides on the website. You're just going to you'll see an overview of the working group 1 description on the website in case you don't have access to the slides. But everybody should have access to the slides because I gave everybody on the list access to the slides.
But my work account is divorced from my Google account.
Yeah.
I requested access.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go through giving people access if you've requested it. But I think does everyone need access in order to be able to do this task? Shall I? Or is it okay if one person in each group has access? Or is it okay just looking on the website? Like, do you need presentation in order to continue?
I think as long as the information's on the website, we're good.
Okay. I'm just trying to work out how many groups to do because I can't quite see how many people are here. Wait a minute. So
Hey,
I can
Sarah,
see.
there's 23 people, maybe 22 if you count Fireflies.
All right, thank you. Hello, by the way.
One of the like participants is my phone number, so that'll be a duplicate. The 830.
Yeah.
So I'll do 4 groups because like sometimes people drop out as well, and then it does it randomly, but I think I can change like the one that's your phone, for example. I think I can actually actively, yeah, so I can remove that phone number, for example. Okay, so I've put you in 4 rooms. Or maybe I should do 5 rooms if there's 20 people. I'll probably do 5 rooms. Wait a minute. I need to work out how to get rid of that and do it again. Wait a second. Sorry for this. This is always the fun part of add.
Yeah, and while Sarah's doing that, if anyone wants access to the slides, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll see if I can get you access as well.
Okay, so now there's 5 rooms. I'm going to open them now. So gradually you should go into them. And if you need something, just come back into the main room and I'll be in there most of the time anyway. I'll probably go and check up on you occasionally. So I'll give you a 5-minute warning in about 20 minutes. And yeah, I hope it's clear what you need to do. Is that okay? Everyone ready to get thrown off into rooms? All right. I'm not in a room, Alan.
Am I in the room?
What happened?
I can see my face here.
At the moment, you're not in a room at all for some
I'm
reason.
not in a room. So it says join the room and I click it, it kicked me out. Okay, I do it one more time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. See you later.
Okay.
Okay, so should we just do highly democratically group one, starting with group one and going through to group 5? I know everyone's going to hate me for doing this. But the only way it's very difficult to remember how long you're talking for. I'm aware of this. So I'm going to do a little timer, if you don't mind. And again, I'm really sorry. But that's just how it is. Can I ask group 1 to try to give a 3-minute summary of the most important things you talked about?
I think we could ask for the 30-second mark warning. That way we don't get it cut off without being expected.
Or if you can see that, I'm sorry, I wasn't showing my screen before, but I think I'm sharing it now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Can you see
Yeah.
the timer on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So if I do the 3-minute thing, you can see it on your screen and I won't have to interrupt you at all. or
Looks like it's in the way of the things we're going to be discussing.
Yes, it might get hidden because of that.
there you go. Is it in the way? It's not in the way. Luckily, he didn't put any things in the bottom right-hand corner.
You got me. All right.
Top right-hand corner. I can put it in the top right-hand corner, top left-hand corner. It would be better. I can also give you a 30-second warning if you prefer.
I think that would be a nice idea.
All right. Do that differently for you then. I'll do it differently. I'll do a 30-second warning. Does that mean I'm just going to say 30-second warning after 2.5 minutes? All right. Then I'll ask group 1 to take the stage.
I'll jump in if the others want to jump in too. But I'm Lily House. I work at EPRI. I'm familiar with some of you in here, but not very many of you. I was previously on a different Task 43 project. Digital twin tools, I think, is what I was mostly working on. But anyway, so what we mostly discussed were a couple of topics in vocabulary and ontology development. So creating a lexicon of wind turbine operational terms, like what do people call wind turbines? There's a bunch of different names for some people call them wind turbine generators, sometimes people call them turbines, some people just call them assets. So there's a lot of different nomenclature and terminology out there. So just like a lexicon of synonyms or just common definitions for things that people use a lot to help standardize that. And then we also discussed this I guess was more me on the blade damage stuff. I'm into blades, and so one thing that I think, or a gap that I see, is there's no like standard terminology for blade damages. People will call a longitudinal crack a transverse crack, a spanwise crack. There's a whole bunch of different names for the same things all over the place, and that makes finding trends over time very difficult, or analyzing different data sets together incredibly difficult. And if we want to get to any kind of optimal handling of damages, we need better data. So just some kind of like getting people all on the same page of like, here's an image of a delamination. This is a delamination. This is not a delamination. You should know what this is. And, just helping people be able to define what they're seeing better. And then we also talked about tracking blade metadata better. So you manufacture a blade, you find defects, you determine that the defects are, not that important, maybe within the realm of error, and you can say, okay, cool, send that out. Now you as an operator don't know about those defects, and maybe you start seeing cracks appearing and you're wondering why. So just being able to track the whole life of the blade from manufacture, transportation, installation, maybe a technician maybe had to make a quick little repair while they were installing it. Just knowing what's going on with your blade throughout the whole life of it can help you better understand its health. So anybody else from the group want to jump on that too?
That was the 30-second timer, by the way. Good, perfect timing. Anything else to add?
No, sounds good.
Really interesting,
Really
though. Thank
captured
you.
everything.
All right, so let's move on to group number 2. Do you want to do that, Yuri?
You talking to me, Sarah?
I was talking to Yuri because he was kind of leading the group.
Just things kept on disappearing.
Hey.
I kept on writing things and they kept on disappearing.
That's the trouble with community work.
I mean, we talked about several things. One, for people are quite interested in the metadata learning part. One of the thoughts that I didn't write, and maybe I should put it here, maybe rename it from metadata learning to something more general, because it's not just metadata.
I already saw that somewhere else.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
it's
just
yeah.
learning data or something.
Yeah. Okay.
So one of the ideas I had, maybe especially for our kind of reforming this community and getting new people now, it's kind of difficult to gauge what are the interests of
Yes.
everyone. So maybe we should have something like a poll, a monthly poll on with 5-6 different topics. I think can be of interest in terms of that are in line with the data maturity roadmap, but some like topics that people can go more deeply in. And then the topic that wins, obviously, we look into the expert, into the field, and then we have like a webinar on that topic. Or we just do a deep dive or like a group meeting on that topic and brainstorm it. I think Janiv added that he's interested in LiDAR data and learning more about just data formats and wind resource assessment data model, what it is, and then developing API of how to deal with this LiDAR data, put it under digital twin tools development or actually develop.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then from my side, there was the idea is that I feel like there is a need of having like a common ontology that would represent a wind turbine, kind of like a platonic idea of a wind turbine, like what is a wind turbine, like what information needs to be represented to just describe a wind turbine on a general level.
30-second warning.
Yeah. And then this information can be, this ontology can be aligned with power curve schemas, and they can be included, or with some model representation that can be included, and so on and so forth. And then this information can be serialized and added to when the data is published. And then Anna Maria said that she's interested in continuing the IRP Wind, the development of taxonomies that are used for data tagging data sets, so that it's possible to apply the FAIR approach to look into specific topics. So we should have a good taxonomy of topics. So when somebody is interested in some topic in wind energy, they use that tag and they find data based on it, or taxonomy of activities. And then I think she added it. We probably should have another thing that would link the activities with maybe specific stakeholders, or look into more like use cases and activities. Another link that can be developed.
All right. Great. Thank you. I just moved that down there. I think that was the right thing to do, right? I just moved that to T1.2. It was in data maturity roadmap before. Yeah. Okay, group 3.
No, yeah.
You're all being shy suddenly. Come on.
You want to go ahead, Ellen? I think you had quite some nice input for data maturity.
Well, I will talk more about data maturity and you folks about others. So data maturity in a lot of places is used for organizational improvements. So they would measure where they are and where they want to go in a time frame, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, whatever it is. And also it's a powerful tool for finding the weaknesses and the strength of an organization. Now, in this case, it would be a wind farm operator, let's say. And the data maturity would be based on ontology. So we need a good, strong, consistent ontology in order to be able to compare organizations against each other, and also measuring them where they stand in maturity roadmap. That's my humble understanding.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, then to the vocabulary and ontology development. We thought about, or Marcus was saying, on how we could actually efficiently use ontologies in our workflows. So maybe we could build use cases, tutorials, documentations, just to show how to actually use an existing ontology already. and how to even potentially combine it with digital twins or to set up simulations in a more automatic way. Yeah, that's basically what we were talking about. We spent a lot of time on the data maturity. Ellen was showing us quite a bit, and then trying to connect this to ontology development as well.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because the use cases activity has been talking about making ontologies as well. It seems to be coming up in lots of sub activities. So it'd be really nice if we could connect things like that.
Yeah, I feel like that can definitely expand it more.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Thank you. All right, group 4. Who's going to volunteer? Des, I think Des left, so.
Yeah. I'll take a swing and we can feel free, Christian or Stuart, to jump in. So group 4 was myself, Des Farron, Christian Johnson, and Stuart Chalk. I'll start with some kind of macro level comments and then we'll get into the weeds. So I guess in a similar vein, there was a sentiment that task 1.1 could be renamed for clarity. So sorry if you can't see this, maybe I can do it a little bit.
And I added the title metadata modeling and semantics learning. Whether that's useful or not, don't know, but.
Yeah, but yeah, but generally speaking, I think yeah, some thought to like renaming that task for more general clarity would be helpful. We also recognize that there was a need for convening across multiple standards, or shall we say pseudo standards groups, such as IEA, IEC, TIMWIN, OSDU, Enter, etc., which is not necessarily captured in any of these individual activities. And then the other macro comment was that digital twins may actually be better suited in working group 4, especially as, you know, digital twins for things like decision support. So it seems like digital twins is such a big topic, it may not actually belong exclusively in working group 1. So those are the macro topics. Specific things, we really identified dissemination as a kind of key activity for both the glossary. So it came up in our group that not a lot of people, even within our group, were familiar with the glossary. So complete that, do dissemination. Webinars, same thing, we can double down on dissemination there. Let's see. Other activities, best practice document for ontology, taxonomies, schema development. In particular, things like how you think about
warning, 30-second warning, sorry.
Yep.
30 minutes.
In particular, how you think about things like classification, so superclasses, subclasses. Nice idea around a gap analysis. I'll move on to schema development. Nice idea around gap analysis of existing schemas. You know, what schemas do we have? What schemas do we need? And then anything else that I missed, Stuart or Christian?
I think that's good.
Yeah, good.
Perfect timing as well. Thank you. All right. And then last but not least, group number 5.
I can do that if that's helpful, folks.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we put quite a lot of stuff down. So I'll probably not deep dive into absolutely everything here. People are welcome to read afterwards. I'll speak about sort of something from Julia and something select from me, and then Jana, if you want to weigh in with something extra, then please do. Overall, though, I think probably the one thing is that, look, on just this board, there's probably 15 person years worth of work. At the moment, the whole of IEA 43 is run on volunteers in their spare time. And so I know this is an elephant in the room, but let's just say, how are we going to finance all of this work? Because across all of this, across these sort of 6 boards that we're putting together right now, and across the whole of Task 43 and the wider effort, actually, if we're going to make sufficient progress that we meet our kind of milestone deliverables by 2030, we actually need to focus more resource on it. So that's something worth considering across the board and in a wider way. Now, on this specific kind of slide, my bugbear is actually around the digital twinning tools, or my main thing is actually around the digital twinning tools. And actually not just digital twins, that's a subset of data services. And so I think there's this area of data services, and certainly at OCTU, we've been producing a lot of good quality open source software to help with that. And a big goal for me is to actually get that out and being used in a wider way. We have high quality software, but we want introductory guides, workshops on how to do it, and better documentation, high level introductory guides and so on how to actually, in a material way, produce a digital twin so that we can kind of scale out that effort across the industry. Julian, I think I hope I'm not misrepresenting to you. I think probably Julian's main thrust was wanting to kind of clearly differentiate schema development with vocabulary and ontologies, and actually kind of, I suppose, explain clearly why they're in different sections and how actually schemas feed into vocabularies, feed into ontologies, and kind of clear up and clarify how that all works, which I think is actually the roadmap will clear that up in part. If I have another 15 seconds, I think it'd be really great to create a controlled vocabulary for DCMI metadata that's specific to the wind industry. Been having a stab in that recently, and I think that would be a great way of actually producing something quite universally reusable across data and documents that we're sending around. So I think that would be not sexy, but quite useful.
All right, perfect. Thank you everyone for keeping to the time and also for having lots of interesting discussions. So we're going to basically move on to the last part, which is kind of wrapping up. According to the time plan, we've got another 4 minutes, so we can't really have any more discussions about anything. But what I want to, I mean, up until now, we've had these monthly metadata challenge meetings, and if we look at working group 1 and how to proceed, there's obviously one thing we could do is to have a monthly meeting where all the tasks just come and report on what they've done. But if in order to do that, we need to have like separate tasks with people actually pushing and leading them. And therefore, at the moment, I'd actually, based on what the inputs we've got today, probably we start with just having, I mean, the roadmap, people are already working together on the roadmap, and the rest of us probably just meet once a month and continue the conversation about what should we start prioritizing on and who wants to work in which sub part, because we can't decide that really today. And then we have to take the inputs from what we got today and then find some way to prioritize on them. Just to sort of maybe close with my idea of the answer to Tom's question about how to finance this stuff. And this is just my idea. I think the point of IEA tasks is not, you can't, we haven't got funding for new projects, right? People are volunteering, and we have to find tasks which people are already doing and which they can get a benefit from by working together on it. So we shouldn't be defining new things that you're not working on already. And that's obviously the challenge, right? But I feel like there are some topics. I mean, even the digital twin thing, I know several groups of people working on digital twin workflows, and they want to have an ontology together on a certain topic, and then why not do that together if you've already got a project finance on that topic? So I guess that's kind of the idea, to find these existing projects. So to close, I suppose we say I'm going to put an invite in for a monthly working group 1 meeting, which is going to change. You've already got the invite actually, but I have to change the time because I've got lectures on that day starting next week. And let's just keep meeting and process the results of this for next time, and maybe branch off into small groups and maybe not, depending on who comes and who's interested. Is there something that somebody wants to ask or say for clarity purposes in the last minute or so? Something that's people are not happy with how we finished, or it's not clear what we're going to do next. People happy with that? Or is there something to ask or say? No.
Andy just turned on his camera.
I can stop sharing my screen now. I can actually see your faces, and I can see if somebody's making a funny face or not. Julian, you put your hand up. Thank you. Do you want to say something?
Well, I guess, I mean, I really like the idea of us meeting once a month to discuss whatever. And like, it's really nice when we have defined goals. We can know when we did the thing we set out to do. And I see a problem. I see something that we could maybe address. It seems that there's been a lot of knowledge built around how to use data in a good way that hasn't really permeated into the wind sector. So is there some way that we could have a goal to spread this information somehow, maybe through developing a shared set of slides or like little educational videos? I don't know what that would look like too much. And what you said about not doing something that you like extra stuff really resonated with me. So I kind of put my hand down after that. But I love the idea of us somehow making some educational content.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good point, and I think that agrees with also what Jason was saying and what we were trying to do in the metadata learning. So yeah, totally agree. Thank you. Let's try and do that. Okay, so I'm just going to invite you all to a meeting, and let's just keep meeting and talking and getting involved and setting some goals, and actually then doing some concrete stuff that people are actually motivated to do, and disseminating it all properly. So thanks for your time, everyone, and you can get in touch with myself or Jason or anybody else on the organising committee. So Stephen, Tom's been involved a lot in the roadmap. If you've got any questions, just feel free to get in touch with us as well. And yeah, hope to see you all soon. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.